We had the outstanding matter of Bayswater. Various discussions have been going on over lunch. Order, please. Order.
That's accurate.
Councillor Mike. Councillor Mike, will you sit down, please? Thank you.
Make a statement.
Yeah, to make a personal statement now that he's seen the NBR.
We get a personal statement from him every 5 minutes. Right. The issue of Bayswater, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as you note, we have had discussions with Councillors Wood and Darby over the break. We have Dave Sanders here, who's our team leader for North in the Planning Department. So it's really just if there are any further questions around the issue that we've raised with Bayswater and our proposal to reject an aspect of the panel's recommendations.
Right. Dave. Right. Chris.
Explained.
Right. Thank you. It's explained.
It's explained.
Right.
Well, yeah,
George.
okay. It needs obviously some clarification, and the question is, I think, on the public record, how can that be affected? And how can that anomalies or clarification that's required be actioned?
Through the Mayor, in order to address an issue of this nature, our approach has been to reject the panel's recommendations and replace it with our alternative provisions for the precinct that fix what we would consider potentially an error, but we're not using the error clause in the legislation because we feel this is more significant than simply an error, and it would be presumptuous to say that it's an error. We just can't make a call one way or the other. So there have been a number of situations, particularly in Part D, when we get to some technical matters, where we're erring on the side of caution and recommending to the governing body that we reject the panel's, in this case, precinct, and replace it with an alternative precinct that resolves the issue and takes us back to our case before the panel at the hearings. And that's the wording of the new recommendation on the screen.
Okay, I'll move it.
You'll move it?
Yep. Does someone want to second it? You'll second it, Councillor George. Councillor Chris.
Thank you. So look, this has been immersed in this for a while, so
yeah.
I'm very cautious in this, and the officers have explained it to me. Unfortunately, with the IHP having completed its work and its office staff also completed their work, there's nothing to go back to check other than the documentation. That's it. And that is an issue in this instance because we can only rely on words. And but it is very important to convey here that the approach pointing out this error anomaly is from the landowner. So I've asked that question, and it is from the landowner.
Okay.
So others have not had the opportunity to respond to the landowner's highlighting of a possible error. Now, is that a legal issue? And I'm just thinking this now. Is that a legal issue?
Yeah, I think
It's for the IHP to have worked out, isn't it?
I think Councillor Darby's asking, the landowner has raised this concern, officers are responding, is there a legal issue around the way in which this is being introduced?
Yeah, is there a legal issue with the landowner highlighting a possible error, our staff responding and bringing this information to us? Has natural justice been
fair question.
Satisfied because there are other submitters
Yep, absolutely.
who are not aware of this information?
yeah,
Councillor, it's a good question, and this is very much on the fly, and this matter has only just come up electronically, hasn't been in the papers that have been before us, and I'm certainly not comfortable giving you an answer to that question here without being able to look at it properly.
Right, I'm not comfortable with that either, and in fact I'm not going to deal with it. I I just think that I wasn't aware that it came out of a personal inquiry. And look, I can understand wanting to bring it here. On the face of it, it looks a difficulty. But I think between now and Monday, you need to see whether or not we can deal with this matter appropriately. In the meantime, I'm not comfortable in dealing with it. So I think that was the exact right question. So thank you for that. So on that basis, that will just lay. Right, councillors, we have got a final clause to move. And that is 016017 rural urban boundary as it pertains to the plans and maps of the north area. I'll move that. It's seconded by Councillor George. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Right, now we move on to Central, last but not least. Okay, now we have got declarations here from Councillor Chris D, Chris F and Councillor Stewart. Now, you know what parts you're declaring on. There's only one reject here. Yes.
I've been taken out of that. This mistake, I wasn't sent.
You have been de-recused.
De-recused.
Okay, that's noted. Penny.
Okay. In terms of topic 080, 081 and 016, 017, well, back to 016, 017 doesn't apply to the central because there is no rural urban boundary there. It's 080 and 081. The one issue that officers wish to bring to the attention of the committee is that the independent hearings panel is recommending the deletion of the Sylvia Park precinct and indicating that future development on the site should rely on the underlying metropolitan zone centre zone. Officers are recommending that the governing body rejects that recommendation. Sylvia Park has had detailed planning provisions for well over a decade now, is yet to be fully developed and is in a location that has serious implications in terms of both height and traffic issues. By relying on the metropolitan centre zone, then there's one blanket height limit, where in the precinct plan there was granular height limits, and there are also requirements around providing information on transport issues because of the location of Sylvia Park right on top of State Highway 1 interchange at Mount Wellington and the Mount Wellington Highway. So officers are recommending that we reject the panel's recommendation to remove that precinct and replace it back with the precinct that was proposed in the council's case before the hearings panel.
Okay, Councillor Denise, you want to move that?
Yes, but I just want to, whether I'm best not to, in the sense that I'll be voting against the wash-up for Central.
Okay.
So perhaps someone else is best to do that.
Right, I'll move it.
This, but I wanted
I'll move
to
Sylvia Park.
make some comments.
Yep, I'm sure. Right, is there a seconder to the Central? Yep,
Oh, no,
Councillor.
sorry.
Oh, well, I will.
Well, Councillor Sharon,
Am I
thank you.
allowed to?
Well done. Okay, right. Councillor Denise.
So can I just clarify, Mr. Chair, that that I can make comments here on, well, very quick comments on the Sylvia Park particular provision here, and that I agree with the staff recommendations that it is more enabling.
Yep.
To keep the precinct in, so I agree with that. Can we make comments on the wash-up
Look,
side of things? Because
it's
when you normally take that dissenting vote, you don't allow comments at that stage, right? So are we able to make comments now?
yes, but I don't want to get into a great big harangue about this. We've been able to go through this process recognising that, you know, you're either for it or against it. We've had this debate. We're not going to go into the detail. No one's gone into the detail much. So I want to keep focused on it.
Was that a yes or a no?
Well, keep it brief.
Look, this is pretty big stuff. This is the zone, the central zone that applies for my ward, and I'm sure other central area councillors would feel the same as me. It is a bit of a quandary. It's more than a quandary. It's actually a really vexed issue where I said back in the out of scope debates that for those who might claim, those of us who supported turfing out of that to be NIMBY or the likes, that would just watch and wait and see what happens in terms of how I stand on intensification in the unitary plan debate. So here we are, and me having voted for removal of some of the density provisions and supported other intensification provisions, but in this instance, if I've got one or two or three particular issues, possibly more in my ward, where I just disagree with some of that zoning, I'm left with no choice but to record a dissenting vote against the whole zone. So it's a really unfortunate situation, but the only one that's presented to us. And I just repeat that for those who think that in doing so, in casting your dissenting vote, that you're anti-intensification, this particular central zone, and more importantly, my particular ward, if you look at all the total maximum return scenario of feasible development capacity, the total return scenario, my ward has the most of all of Auckland. So, and I am in support of so much of what the unitary plan will result in, but I have to record my vote against this. So it's I'll repeat, it's a really, really unfortunate situation. But there are places in my ward where the application of the 400 to 800 metre walkable distance zone is about to be, provision is about to be applied, yet in actual walking distance at the corner of a thab, and I'll reference it as in Panmure, it's actually 2.2 kilometres of walking distance, not 800 metres. So there are some aspects to this that are going to cause some, and are causing some real alarm for our communities, and I think that we will see some appeals, and not everyone's going to be happy.
That's it.
So I'd like to record my vote, Mr Mayor, against central zoning, and I do so with regret, given that many aspects of the unitary plan I support, but we're left with no choice.
Right. Any other speakers? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr Chair. On similar lines to my colleague, Councillor Crum, I will be voting against 6.141 recommendation C that accepts all the recommendations from the IHP in and around rezoning and precincts in that central isthmus, former Auckland City Council area. Look, there has been in the Council's proposal that we signed up to, and that the community, many reluctantly, agreed to put forward to the IHP, significant and I believe sufficient capacity for greater intensification in the isthmus area. But the IHP, with what they've returned in the last week, significantly upzones the central area, and I believe will fundamentally change the character and face of Auckland forever. I believe that there is, under the Council's proposal, which plenty of the community were against, but nonetheless that's what was submitted and that's what the Council put evidence on, sufficient intensification opportunity there. And when you look at the significant developments, residential, commercial, mixed-use developments that are underway in the central area, I think Anne Gibson, the property editor of the New Zealand Herald, said there's over 50. And when you're coming in from north, south, west or east, you'll see those tower cranes that are up on the skyline. Significant development is already underway under the operative plan. So what I'm saying today is I support what the Council's position was. I didn't, but I'd prefer that, and I think that is a more sustainable and palatable option than what the IHP have come back with. The IHP have cut the single house zone, for example, region-wide by 22%, but on the central isthmus Auckland City Council area, the single house zone has been cut by 42.6%. we've lost any density provision for sites under 1,000 square metres in that widespread mixed housing zone, which now pervades most of the central isthmus area. Mixed housing urban, Mr Chair, which was sold to us when Dr Roger Blakely put it out as a solution on the eve of us tabling the proposed unitary plan in September 13 as a zone to allow the intensification to go around our town centres, to wrap around, I think was the language, to wrap around our town centres and transport nodes, is now running away all across the isthmus, mixed housing urban.